Vincent Gigante, also known as the Chin, was one of the most notorious mobsters in American history, particularly within the Mafia's Genovese crime family. His life, marked by crime, cunning, and a lengthy deception involving his mental health, unfolded across several cities in the United States. Below is an overview of his life, crimes, and his portrayal in documentaries. Early life in New York. Born, Vincent Louis Gigante was born on March 29, 1928, in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, New York City, to Italian immigrant parents. Boxing career. Gigante's early life involved a brief stint as a professional boxer, a common career for young Italian-American men from tough neighborhoods. He fought under the name The Chin, a nickname that stuck with him for life. He had a decent record in the ring, though he eventually left the sport for the mafia world. Introduction to organized crime. Gigante became involved in organized crime in the 1950s, working as a soldier for the Luciano, later Genovese, crime family. He gained attention early on as a loyal and dangerous associate. The rise in the Mafia, New York. Early criminal activity. Gigante's rise in the Mafia hierarchy began with his involvement in various criminal enterprises, including loan sharking, extortion, and racketeering. His activities were centered in New York City, where the Genovese crime family had a stronghold. 1957, attempted assassination of Frank Costello. Gigante became famous for attempting to assassinate Frank Costello, the boss of the Luciano crime family. He reportedly shot Costello in the head outside of his apartment in New York City. Costello survived but retired from the Mafia afterward, leading to Vito Genovese becoming the new boss. Gigante's loyalty to Genovese earned him respect and power within the family. Rising through the ranks. Through the 1960s and 1970s, Gigante rose through the ranks, eventually becoming a capo, and then the boss of the Genovese crime family by the early 1980s. His leadership extended over multiple states but was primarily concentrated in New York City, where the family had its base of operations. Becoming the Oddfather, New York. Feigning insanity. In the early 1970s, Gigante began a decades-long campaign of feigning mental illness to avoid prosecution. He would walk around Greenwich Village in a bathrobe and slippers, muttering to himself. His defense team frequently produced medical reports claiming that he suffered from schizophrenia and dementia. His act of insanity earned him the nickname the Oddfather. Control over the Genovese family. Despite his apparent mental illness, Gigante was secretly running the Genovese family with an iron fist. His control was so strong that he is said to have ordered hits, settled disputes, and coordinated racketeering activities, all while avoiding law enforcement scrutiny. Under Gigante's leadership, the Genovese family flourished, becoming the most powerful mafia family in New York during the 1980s and 1990s. Mob-related murders and violence, New York and beyond. Ruthless leadership. Gigante's tenure as boss saw numerous mob-related murders and violent acts. One of the most notable was the hit on Genovese family member John Gotti, which Gigante allegedly ordered after Gotti took control of the rival Gambino family. However, the attempt failed, as Gotti survived multiple assassination attempts. Extensive criminal operations. Gigante oversaw criminal operations that spanned gambling, construction, labor unions, and loan sharking. His influence extended beyond New York to other cities like Miami and Philadelphia, but his base of operations remained in New York City, particularly in the Greenwich Village neighborhood. Legal troubles and the long-feigned insanity. 1980s, early federal investigations. Throughout the 1980s, law enforcement agencies, including the FBI, began focusing on Gigante. However, his insanity ruse complicated their attempts to prosecute him. His ability to avoid incrimination led to mounting frustration among investigators. 1990, indictment. In 1990, Gigante was finally indicted on racketeering charges. His mental health defense continued, with psychiatrists testifying on his behalf. The trial was delayed multiple times due to claims of his mental incapacity. Conviction and imprisonment. Despite his insanity defense, Gigante was convicted in 1997 of racketeering and other charges. He was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. In 2003, he admitted to feigning mental illness in a plea deal, ending the decades-long charade. His health had genuinely deteriorated by this time, and he spent the remainder of his life behind bars. Death and legacy. Death. Vincent Gigante died in federal prison on December 19, 2005, at the age of 77. Legacy. Gigante's legacy is that of one of the most cunning and elusive mob bosses in American history. His ability to evade law enforcement for decades by pretending to be mentally ill remains one of the most bizarre aspects of his criminal career. Life in other cities. New Jersey. Gigante extended his influence into New Jersey, where the Genovese family had significant interests in construction, waste management, and labor unions. He maintained control over New Jersey operations primarily through loyal captains. Miami and Florida. Like many other mafia bosses, Gigante also had operations in Miami, Florida. The Genovese family was involved in gambling, particularly in casinos and hotels, and various criminal rackets across southern Florida. Philadelphia. Gigante had occasional interactions with the Philadelphia crime family, especially during the turbulent reign of Nicky Scarfo in the 1980s, though his power base always remained centered in New York. Documentaries and portrayals. Vincent Gigante has been the subject of several documentaries and crime shows that delve into his bizarre life and criminal career. The Mafia's Secret Weapon. This documentary examines Gigante's rise to power and his elaborate mental illness hoax, which allowed him to rule the Genovese family for years. The Oddfather. Another documentary that focuses on his strange behavior in New York City and how law enforcement struggled to pin charges on him for decades. Fear City, New York vs. The Mafia. Netflix. This documentary series, though it primarily focuses on the Mafia in the 1970s and 1980s, touches on Gigante's role in the Genovese crime family. These documentaries explore his life in organized crime, his influence on the Mafia, and his unusual strategy for evading law enforcement. They often feature interviews with law enforcement officials, mob historians, and former mobsters who explain how Gigante's insanity ploy stymied investigators for years. Thanks for tuning into Sika True Crime Docs. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more captivating tales. Your support helps us keep bringing these stories to life. See you in the next episode.